All right, guys, welcome back to the channel and welcome back to another podcast episode. Today, we're going to cover all the fights from the weekend, that including Albert Ramirez and Lerone Richards. We're going to look at the Zuffa card, Ryan Rozicki versus Chris Smith, one of the contenders for Fight of the Year, as well as Josh Padley versus Aqib Fiaz, which was an amazing fight in and itself. We've got all the moments of the week. What's caught my eye this week in the world of combat sports? A stack of breaking news. There's a lot of news we've got to get through, and then we're going to finish up by previewing next weekend's action, primarily Bam Rodriguez versus Antonio Vargas, which is a great fight. But let's start with this weekend's results. We're going to start with that card out in Montreal, Canada. Imam Khataev defeats Mikhail Diallo via a round 1 TKO. A very strange fight. For the first minute and a half. I don't remember Mikhail Diallo actually really throwing a punch. It was Imam Khataev on the front foot, using his power, going to the body, trying to open up the head. Just dominating Mikhail Diallo for the first minute and a half of the very first round, and then opens himself up, goes for a right hand, and Mikhail Diallo beats him to the punch. He catches Imam Khataev with a right hand. It wasn't a sort of traditional knockdown. Imam Khataev didn't end up on his ass, but his glove did touch the canvas, so it was counted as a knockdown, and definitely rocked Imam Khataev. Like, it was a clean right hand, a right hand that we've seen a few times now landed on Imam Khataev. But Imam Khataev, he gets back up, goes back to work straight away on Mikhail Diallo, pushes him into a corner, rips one good right hook to the body, opens up the head, and then a big right overhand that it doesn't even sort of land on the ear or on the top of the head. It sort of goes around the back of the head, bit of a cupping shot, not really, with its full power, but it still drops Mikhail Diallo. Mikhail Diallo gets up, walks over to his corner, basically to convene about saying, all right, we're not going to fight anymore. And the ref says, all right, that's the fight. So a very, very strange fight. You'd think after Mikhail Diallo got that knockdown, he might have thought, all right, I've got a chance in this fight. I know I'm the B side. I know that this guy hits very, very hard, but I have knocked him down. I've got a chance. But no, he almost took the easiest way out the first time he got knocked down. I don't recall him saying he had an injury or anything like that, but very, very strange fight. Good win for Imam Khataev. That's now back-to-back wins since that Devin Morrell defeat, which for me, personally, wasn't a defeat. And in terms of what next for Imam Khataev, I think the fact that he ran with Devin Morrell and arguably won, drew, or lost that fight, depends on how you viewed it. I respect that it was a very, very close fight. And if you thought Imam Khataev lost it, I can understand that. I think it's a very, very, very close fight. So any three of those results were possible. In my opinion, Imam Khataev did enough to get a draw or a win. But nonetheless, ran it with David Morrell, who at that time and place, still was a top light heavy. We've now got a lot of questions considering. Lost to David Benavidez, arguably lost to Imam Khataev, got knocked out by Zach Chelli. But what next for Imam Khataev? I think that Zach Chelli fight is a good fight. If David Morrell's not going to run it back with him, I think that's now a high level opponent. You both had fights against David Morrell. I think put them two together, it would be a good fight. I think Anthony Yard is a good fight. I think Willie Hutchinson's a good fight. I think Najee Lopez is a good fight. Any of these names, I think Imam Khataev needs at very least a top 10 guy. At very least a top 10. If you can push a top 5, I'd say go for the top 5. Imam Khataev is ready for that. All right, Albert Ramirez defeats Lerone Richards via split decision, 115-113 Ramirez, 116-112 Richards, 115-113 Ramirez. This is why fighters hate to be the B-side. This is why fighters hate to travel abroad. This is why fighters sometimes don't take a hard option or take a difficult road. Because Lerone Richards, at a very poignant part of his career, this is a big win for him. There's a belt on the line. He travels to Canada to be the B-side against Albert Ramirez, and he gets completely and entirely robbed of the win, of that belt, of that status of beating Albert Ramirez. That's that fight. The fact that Lerone Richards walked away with a defeat on the weekend after his performance against Albert Ramirez, it's why people really, really begrudge boxing sometimes. Like, I see it in the comments all the time about people's interest in boxing and why they don't like to watch it. And they say, I prefer to go watch UFC if this is the shit. Like, this is now 3 weeks in a row. We had Rico Verhoeven and Alexander Usyk. Controversy. We had Holly Holm last week getting completely robbed against Stephanie Hahn. We've now got this one, Lerone Richards getting completely robbed by Albert Ramirez. If we talk about the fight, look, it wasn't the most entertaining fight. It was very slow, very sluggish, very ugly. A lot of inside fighting. Neither one of them could find any rhythm or groove. Albert Ramirez was searching the whole night for one big shot that never came. Whereas at least Leron Richards, he was able to work that jab during the fight. He was able to find some combinations, some rhythm in that fight, and he looked the better fighter on the inside in the pocket. There was no way that Leron Richards lost that fight. Okay. Albert Ramirez looks so poor, you could even see in the last few rounds where his team's like, you've got to come out and stop this guy. We're not winning this fight. They get to a decision and you see his whole team basically, submitting to a defeat. They know that they've lost this fight. You should have seen the surprise on their faces when they were announced the winners. Poor man, poor. And I hate when that happens because Leron Richards, where's he go from now? Because people are going to look at him and say, well, it's not a great fight. It's an ugly fight. I don't really want to be in that with him. All right. He stops other people's rhythm. He makes it ugly. I'm not going to look my best against him. And he has nothing to offer. Whereas he should have been a belt holder. He should have said, all right, I've got this interim belt. Come and fight me for it. Whereas now, what's his argument? What's his, why is he going to pull people into a fight with him? He's got to now rebuild somehow. Japan, Andrew Moloney becomes the IBF Super Flyweight champion, defeating Wilbardo Garcia Perez via majority decision. 115-113, 115-113, 114-114. Couldn't be more happy for Andrew Moloney. We know this guy's journey. He's been in countless opportunities, has always fallen short. That fight against Junto Nakatani, the fact that he has suffered that defeat in that fashion to Junto, and he's come back and he's found a way to go to Japan and win a belt. You couldn't be more happy for him. And you could see the emotion, the elation in his face when he won that belt. So very, very happy for Andrew Moloney. A very good fight. And it's another one of those fights that I think you could have argued any three results. I personally scored it 114-114. I thought it was a draw. I thought that was the fairest result. Wilbardo Garcia Perez probably fell asleep too much in the middle rounds. That's where he lost that fight. I thought Wilbardo Garcia started very, very well, working quite well on the inside. Andrew Moloney was struggling to get that distance. He was really trying to run away from Wilbardo Garcia Perez. Just get that distance, just so he can box Perez, who's that constant forward action, high pressure, high octane fighter. Andrew Moloney was just trying to separate and get that distance to be able to box, pick him off, create angles. After a few rounds, Andrew Moloney was able to do that. Through those middle rounds, Andrew Moloney was able to gather that distance and he was landing the crisper, better shots. I think Wilbardo Garcia was the higher activity. I can't remember what the final CompuBox stats were, but I'm pretty sure Wilbardo Garcia out through Andrew Moloney. But Andrew Moloney's punches were definitely the cleaner, crisper hits. So it really depended on what you prefer. But I think Andrew Moloney did enough, landed enough clean shots, won enough rounds through the middle to garner a victory. Like I said, I put it as a draw. I liked both of their work. Andrew Moloney was crisper, cleaner with his punches, but you got to respect Wilbardo Garcia Perez, who was high activity, but most of his punches, he might have thrown 10 and landed 5, where you looked at Andrew Moloney, he might have threw 5 but landed 4. So, like I said, it's whichever one you prefer. Andrew Moloney definitely landed the crisper, harder punches, but Wilbardo Garcia Perez was that high activity. But great win for Andrew Moloney. I couldn't be happier for him. Does he get that undisputed shot against Bam Rodriguez? Probably not. I've seen a few people say we'd like to see that before the Inoue fight. I personally think Bam has his eyes solely set on one guy, and that's Inoue. As much as he'd want to become undisputed, Inoue's a big payday. It's a big opportunity. It's a big name. It's a fight that if Bam doesn't take now, he might not get a shot later. So I think he's got to take it. But Andrew Moloney, he becomes a world champion nonetheless. John Riel Casemiro stops Luis Nery in round 4. What the fuck was this fight? From fight week on, it was a complete mess. Luis Nery weighs in at 127.2 pounds in a 124-pound limit. So you could see where Luis Nery's head was. And I can't even... He was dropped 3 times in round 1. He was dropped once in round 2. He was dropped once in round 3, but in that round 3 one probably shouldn't have been counted as a knockdown. And then in round 4, Casemiro lands a great left hook to wobble Nery, and then a better left hook to KO him. So, yeah, I mean, if you didn't watch that fight, Casemiro was on the front foot, landing big power punches. Luis Nery looked like he didn't even train for the fight. He just turned up for a bit of a payday, which I'm not even sure he gets because he weighed in so heavy. An absolute mess. A typical Lewis Nery versus John Riel Casemiro fight. I mean, you knew that one of these guys weren't going to make weight. You knew one of these guys were going to fumble the bag, and Lewis Nery just didn't turn up. And John Riel Casemiro, he did what he had to do. He weighed in on time, had an opponent in front of him, dropped him numerous amounts of times, completely dominant, won the fight. Masamichi Yabucki defeats Rene Kalitso to defend his IBF flyweight title for the third time, winning by unanimous decision 118 to 108, 118 to 108, 116 to 110. Kalitso dropped twice in round one. A good performance by Yabucki, but not an outstanding performance by Yabucki. He dominated that fight, right? He drops him twice early. He gets him hurt in about round 9 or round 10. And you're just waiting for Yabucki to get this guy out of you. I mean, coming into this fight, I think most people predicted Yabucki to win this by a knockout. I think the recent run of form from Yabucki, we know how hard he hits. We know how good he is. I think coming into this fight, it was almost one of those instances where a fighter has so much success recently, gets so many knockouts recently, that he almost forgets what earns him that knockout. I think from the start to the end of that fight, Yabucki was looking for that one big shot constantly, instead of earning that one big shot. And what I mean by that is, when you're in there with an opponent that you're clearly better than, you still got to go in there and do what you would against a good opponent. You still got to go in there, work your jab, build your combinations, and open up an opportunity to land that big punch. Whereas he went in there searching for the big punch without earning it, without using that jab, without building combinations to find that final punch. And that's why Kalitso found the final bell. And in credit to Kalitso, the best two rounds from him were probably the 11th and the 12th round. After he was dropped twice early, dominated for the middle part of the fight, gets hurt in round 9, round 10, he actually comes on strong in the round 11 and round 12. So very, very good from Rene Kalitso, considering nobody gave him a hope in this fight. But ultimately, Yabucki did win this fight by a landslide. And we are probably being greedy, saying that he should have knocked him out. But what can you do? All right, let's go to Bournemouth. Chev Clark stops Jack Massey in the 7th round. Great performance by Chev Clark. If you didn't watch this fight, Chev Clark, for the first 4 or 5 rounds, could not get anywhere near Jack Massey. Jack Massey, we know how tall he is, the long reach. He was keeping Chev Clark at distance. All right, using that jab well, keeping him at distance, pushing him back, not letting him get on the inside. In round 4, drops Chev Clark, and you're thinking, Chev Clark, he's just not on it tonight. He can't get on the inside. He's been dropped. He's getting hurt. It is, when not if for Jack Massey. After getting dropped, he turns the tide very, very quickly. Chev Clark finds a way, be's a little bit more active, gets on the inside of Jack Massey's jab, and then goes to work. And he finds the knockout in the 7th round. A very, very good overhand right that lands perfectly on Jack Massey and stops him in his tracks. So a great performance by Chev Clark, considering, I think, especially how it started. I tipped him to win the fight. I did, coming into fight week. I tipped him to win the fight. And then once the fight started, I says, I think I've got this wrong here, because Chev Clark just doesn't look like he's in the fight at all. But I should have trusted my first instinct. He goes in there and he stops Jack Massey. All right, Chris Smith defeats Ryan Rozicki. Rozicki retires on his stool at the end of the 7th round. Look, first of all, have a look at these two warriors. Have a look at these photos of these two guys after this fight. That is what we come to watch. That is why boxing is such a good sport, and it's something that we don't see enough. Look, I know they both ended up in hospital, which is something we don't want, all right? But in terms of the fight, unbelievable fight. And it's definitely a fight of the year contender. I don't personally think it'll win. I think Daniel Dubois versus Fabio Wardley won't be top this year, but it will be in the conversation. It was an excellent, excellent fight. The problem with this fight was it was a little bit similar to Daniel Dubois and Fabio Wardley. As good a fight as it was, as much entertainment as we got from it, Ryan Rozicki did play the part very much of Fabio Wardley. He wasn't really in this fight. For majority of this fight, Ryan Rozicki was losing it. I think Ryan Rozicki won the first round. He came out strong, high pressure, physical with Chris Smith pushing him back. And you thought, all right, let's go. All right, let's see if Ryan Rozicki can get this upset. Because in my opinion, I did pick Chris Smith as the winner. Ryan Rozicki came out firing. And he fought that fight the same way from start to finish. Round 1 to round 7, he fought it as if it was round 12. Like, the guy is an absolute maniac. but he's an animal. He's got the heart of a warrior, and he made that fight very, very exciting. The difference in this fight was the experience and the composure from Chris Smith. Chris Smith showed that he's been in there with top guys. Ryan Rozicki, up until this point, Chris Smith was a step up for him. He's been in there with majority domestic level opponents. And we saw that. Ryan Rozicki was very, very aggressive. He was on the front foot. He was trying to bully Chris Smith. Something he would have easily been able to do with domestic level opponents. This step up now, you've got to give and take. You've got to be defensively responsible. And that's something he just wasn't. All right, you look at that round 6 where Chris Smith's able to land like 5 or 6 right and left hooks in a row. Ryan Rozicki's head spinning back and forth like a cartoon character. There was no defensive priorities there for Ryan Rozicki. His hands were down. He just allowed it to happen. We can't do that against these top-level cruiserweight guys. Now, you can argue how strong you think Chris Smith is. I believe him to be one of the strongest in cruiserweights. Does that mean I think he's a very, very strong overall boxer? Probably not, because cruiserweight division, apart from Jai and David Benavidez, who would you say has a very, very strong punch? So you could argue that Chris Smith is a top 3 puncher. It's not an absolutely stacked, outrageous division, is it? So for Chris Smith, it was that composure, it was that timing, it was allowing Ryan Rozicki to come in, throw punches, but most of which were blocked, and then pick him off with an uppercut, pick him off with a hook. Even in that round 3 where Ryan Rozicki's pushing Chris Smith back, Chris Smith is just happy. He retreats, he takes a step back, jab, right hook, wobbles Ryan Rozicki. Like, it's perfect. It was that experience, that composure, that timing from Chris Smith that won him this fight. He could have very easily gone in there and just started trading from the bell to the end of the fight with Ryan Rozicki, like he did with Brandon Land, like he did with Zerda Ramirez, but he was smart enough in this fight to know this guy's not on my level quite yet. Let me use my experience. Let me use my composure. Let me win this fight. All right, last fight of the weekend up in Sheffield. Josh Padley versus Aqib Fiaz. A forgotten about fight, an overlooked fight. And that's not a slight on either guy. That's simply because the main event was supposed to be Dalton Smith versus Alberto Puello. Then it was supposed to be Ricardo Sandoval versus Galal Yafai. This was almost the third tier fight promoted to the main event. So it is a hard sell. Not many people got around it, but the people that did get around it, the people that did watch it were, shown a very entertaining fight. All right, that was a great fight. So if you overlooked it, shame on you, because it was an excellent, excellent fight. Josh Padley defeating Aqib Fiaz via a split decision, 113-114. Fiaz, 114-113. Padley, 115-112. Padley. My scorecard will be up on the screen so you can see how I scored it. There was a point deduction in the 11th round, which is probably a great place to start talking about the fight. He was deducted a point deduction. I think the official point deduction was for a headbutt. Leading with the head. I don't think it was actually a landed headbutt, but leading with the head. But for me, Aqib Fiaz is lucky to have only had 1 point deducted in that fight. From the opening bell, right, till about 7-8 rounds in that fight, every single round there was a low blow from Aqib Fiaz, at least one. The amount of punches that, these weren't even like on the belt to say, all right, there's an argument there for it going either way. They just below the belt, below the waistband, clearly low blows. And the ref warned him numerous times. And you know what, there's plenty of shots that the ref didn't even see that went low. So I thought it was poor by the referee that he didn't deduct a point early. Not that I have anything against Aqib Fiaz, but you get warned once, okay. If it's early in the fight, maybe you give him 2 warnings because of how early it is in the fight. But when we get to 3 or 4 warnings, no matter where it is in the fight, you got to deduct a point, because you don't deduct a point, he knows he can just keep doing it. And guess what? You didn't deduct a point, and he kept on fucking doing it. And then late in the fight, he started leading with the head. Good on the referee, only let it happen about once or twice. Like, he gave him a stern warning, and then he deducted a point the next time. But for me, he should have been a little bit harsher early in that fight, clean it up a little bit. But it was a turning point, that round 11 deduction, because I had it, as you can see by my scorecard, dead even very late in that fight. So the fact that going into that 11th and 12th round, you get yourself a point deduction, you lose that round 10-8, it's hard to win a decision with something like that. Everybody knew that fight was close. Fiaz would have known, Padley would have known. So to lose a point off something silly, yeah, very well could have cost him that fight. And I thought Josh Padley ended the fight much better than Aqib Fiaz. The last few rounds I gave to Josh Padley, I thought he did the better work late in that fight. Fiaz did slow a little bit late. But a very high and entertaining fight, high octane fight. Josh Padley, the difference for me in this fight between Josh Padley and Aqib Fiaz was very, very aggressive, was able to muscle and push back Josh Padley, hold him up against the ropes, which is all good. At the end of the day, we aren't wrestling, we are boxing. So as much as you push him back, as much as you're on the front foot, you still have to land your punches. You still have to be clean. You still have to be crispy. You have to give the judges something to see. Josh Padley on the back foot was able to land the cleaner, crisper punches. He was able to land the more eye-catching punches, the sterner punches. He landed a great left hook during that fight. He was able to land uppercuts. And Aqib Fiaz, he might have landed one good shot, but Josh Padley landed 3 or 4 good shots in response. They both were body snatching, and I think the body work was very, very even. But Josh Padley probably got the bigger shots in. Aqib Fiaz might have thrown, 10 punches, but they were shoe-shining punches, whereas Josh Padley might have thrown 3, but they were power punches, and for me, that always catches the eye. The other thing that was the difference between these two guys was Aqib Fiaz probably threw 10 punches and landed 5, whereas Josh Padley probably threw 5 and landed 4. In a lot of these exchanges, Aqib Fiaz, he just needed to be crisper, he needed to be cleaner, he needed to get a little bit more power on it, whereas I thought Josh Padley was all of that. All right, and there wasn't a massive difference between the numbers. I'm probably exaggerating with the 10 and the 5, but Josh Padley's work was just the cleaner, crisper work. And for me, that gets the decision. Who next for Josh Padley? I think Luis Alberto Lopez is a good fight. I think Lee Wood's a good fight. Josh Padley's at a point where he is a British champion. He is a European champion. He is someone that is ready for that next step. He's already been in there with someone that's had that next step in Shakur Stevenson. He got clearly dominated in that fight against Shakur Stevenson. It wasn't even close. But I'd like to see him in there with another top 5 guy. I'd like to see how he's learned, how he's adapted. A new division. Mind you, don't forget that he fought that fight against Shakur Stevenson on 2 days' notice on a division that, he's not in anymore. He's now down a division. He does look better, stronger, and more physical in this division. So, yeah, a top 5 guy for Josh Padley next, no doubt. All right, I do want to talk quickly about the UFC results that happened on the weekend. Like I did say a few weeks ago, we are going to start integrating some more UFC talk into this chat because, look, I love the UFC. I'm the most casual viewer you're ever going to see. So, I'm not going to give you in-depth stuff like I do with the boxing, but it's still something that interests me, and I'm still going to talk about it. So if you don't like it, you can fast forward. The timestamps are in the description, in the comments, but just watch. Come on, give me the watch hours. Brandon Allen defeats Edmund Shabazian by unanimous decision with 30-27, 30-27, 29-28. Brandon Allen has now got a great win streak. I mean, the Vettori win was good. The Reina Derrida fight, that was a very good win. I mean, you'd think about where Reina Derrida was at that point in time. He'd just beaten Kevin Holland. He'd just beaten Bo Nickel, and then he had dominated Robert Whittaker. Brandon Allen came in and handed him his first loss. So Brandon Allen's run now of Vettori, Derrida, and Shabazian, he's very, very close, if not next, for a middleweight title shot. And the main event, Gabriel Bonfim defeating Belal Muhammed via unanimous decision, 50-45, 50-45, 50-45. Bonfim very, very close to an opportunity as well in the welterweight division to a title shot. I think he still needs a good win, maybe against someone like a Carlos Prates or a Morales. But for Gabriel Bonfim, he just outboxed and won 5-0 against a former welterweight champion in Belal Muhammad. My biggest sort of criticism comes on Belal Muhammad. I don't know what the fuck this guy's doing. I don't know why he believes he has Canelo hands, but he was clearly beaten by JDM, outboxed by an absolute mile, was clearly beaten by Ian Machado Gary, and then still tries to stand up against Gabriel Bonfim. And, you can understand it, all right? I think I can outbox him. All right, but if you're 3 rounds in and you've been dominated every single fucking round, why are you still doing it? Try and wrestle the guy. Throw something different in here, and he just didn't. So I don't know what that corner's doing over at Belal. I don't know what Belal's thinking, but there was no other decision than him losing 5-0 in that fight. All right, let's get into the breaking news. There is a lot of breaking news that we got to get through today. Shakur Stevenson to Zuffa. Maybe, maybe not. I have no idea where we are with this Shakur. I'm hearing that Shakur Stevenson and Devin Haney are both set to sign with Zuffa, and Zuffa hope to make a fight between Shakur Stevenson and Devin Haney. But, there's plenty of other stuff going around. Shakur Stevenson doesn't sound like he wants the Devin Haney fight next. I think he wants to get a little bit more accustomed to super light and or welterweight. Bill Haney and Devin Haney are clearly ducking Keyshawn Davis. We all saw that FaceTime call.
Hold on. Listen, because it's a package deal, King. Now listen, you and your brother, we want you both. Now listen, you guys got to get together. You got to sign the agreement together that we're going back to back with you, gentlemen. Sir, okay? And that's only right. Listen, like Jay says, if this shit, if Jay said, like he say, if this shit is going down, let's get it over with.
We'll only take Keyshawn Davis if we get Shakur first. You have to sign a contract together so we fight you both. I think he's doing his best to get away from that Keyshawn Davis fight. I don't think he wants to fight Keyshawn Davis. I do think Keyshawn Davis is a massive problem and a big hitter.
I'm going to whoop your ass, Debo. I'm going to whoop your ass. You get your ass whipped. Hey.
But it is a mess. I think Bill Haney and Devin Haney are very, very smart. They do things in a very smart way. Like, they want Shakur Stevenson at welterweight. They know they have the advantage. Shakur Stevenson wants it at a catchweight. They won't meet an agreement. At the same time as Devin Haney doesn't want to drop a few pounds to take on Shakur, he wants Boots Ennis and Sebastian Fundora to meet them at welterweight. So you don't want to drop 2 or 3 pounds to take on Shakur, but you expect John Boots Ennis and that massive giant of Sebastian Fundora to drop a few pounds to fight you at a catchweight or at welterweight. So, you can see the way that they want the fights, but they want them on their grounds. We're not ducking anybody. They're ducking us. They don't want the action, but it's like you're giving them unreasonable clauses that they have to sign. If Devin Haney really wants those fights, you either go up to super welterweight and show it that you want those fights, or you drop down. It's not even a lot. It's like 2 or 3 pounds of catchweight to take on Shakur. So Bill Haney and Devin Haney are very, very smart the way that they do things, and they make it look like they want fights, but in my opinion, they don't. I hope they just resolve it. Anthony Joshua plans to fight till he is 40. He's done an interview. He's currently 36, and he says his plans are to fight till he's 40 years of age. I don't want to see it. I kind of am happy to see him take on Tyson Fury and retire. I don't know. Like, I know he's under this new tutelage of Alexander Usyk, and I'm very interested to see how he performs and he looks under Alexander Usyk. And I think that will give us a good gauge of what to expect going forward. If he's a completely revolutionized, different fighter, we see them run on the beach, Rocky style. If he's a different breed now, and he goes in there and he knocks out Tyson Fury or something, all right, yeah, I can garner him going to 40. But we have to see something better than what we did against Daniel Dubois and even Jake Paul. But that was farcical, so I don't even want to talk about that. Katie Taylor will have her final fight in September at Croke Park against French woman Flora Peely. A great send-off for Katie Taylor in Dublin at Croke Park. You couldn't ask for much more. This is like fairy tale ending for Katie Taylor. So I'm very, very happy for her. She's had an amazing career, and argue amongst yourself if she's the GOAT or if Clarissa Shields the GOAT. I can understand either angle, honestly. I kind of think they're both GOATs in different ways. I think they're both exceptional fighters in different ways. I think Katie Taylor probably has the better resume, though. She probably does. If I'm being honest, she probably does. This will make her an undisputed champion in a third division. I think Katie Taylor, it is so difficult, man. It is so difficult because Clarissa Shields has been undisputed in multiple divisions, gold medalist too. I mean, these two girls are exceptional winners. But a great send-off for Katie Taylor coming in at Croke Park in September. All right, this one here has captured a lot of eyes, and not for the right reasons. Rico Verhoeven is now ranked 8th by the WBC and 15th by the WBA. We've seen this by the WBC numerous times. They will cash in on any money opportunity. I mean, remember when they promoted Jake Paul into the top 15 at cruiserweight, and then, rescinded that call after they saw the backlash? For credit for Rico Verhoeven, look, I don't want to discount Rico Verhoeven too much, but Rico Verhoeven, he is a kickboxer. He's had 2 professional fights, one 15 years ago, one current. He did lose that fight. He did get knocked out in that fight. What warrants him a ranking like that? I have no idea. He shouldn't have been in a world title fight in the first place. Gets it by somehow, loses it. Don't give him a ranking. It's just disrespectful to everybody that has grinded out their ranking. At the end of the day, that's all you're disrespecting. You're disrespecting the people that have spent the past 15 years grinding themselves to get to that 8th spot, and then they've just looked and said, Rico Verhoeven has had one fight, lost it, and he's bumped me. So, yeah, that's a problem. I don't like it. I don't like it at all. But, yeah, it is what it is, man. We can't do anything about it. We know how these companies work. It's based on money. Oisles Iglesias is in advanced talks to defend his IBF super middleweight title against Carlos Adames. Carlos Adames, tempting to be stepped up and take on Oisles Iglesias. I think it's a good fight. We got 2 guys from similar places. One's Cuban. and Carlos Adames is Dominican Republic or Panamanian, whichever one it is. Very, very close. I think it'll be an exceptional fight between these two guys, providing Carlos Adames can adjust to another division. But realistically, for Carlos Adames, if he can't get Erislandy Lara at middleweight, Oisles Iglesias, that's a mega fight to have at super middle. I think Carlos Adames is so crafty and so good. We saw what he did against Hamza Shiraz. I think Hamza Shiraz was hurt a little bit by the weight category, and that's a big talking point. I think Carlos Adames, he's not exactly the biggest middleweighter, so to step up against a hard-hitting guy, a bit of a boogeyman in Oisles Iglesias, that's a big step up. It's a very, very brave call, but Carlos Adames is so crafty that it is so hard to hit him with a big shot. So Oisles Iglesias is going to have to be on his... I'd love to see that fight. I think it's an exceptional fight. But if I were to pick, I'd probably have preferred Adames versus Erislandy Lara. If they could have jammed that fight to be undisputed, it would have been good as well. But yeah, Carlos Adames versus Oisles Iglesias, still a very good fight. This is a very interesting one. Now, we're seeing that Aaron McKenna and Etanos Olaha are going to be fighting under Zuffa now, and it's going to be for a middleweight world title, the IBF world title, and the Zuffa world title. Now, yeah, I did say it, the IBF title. So where are we now on IBF supporting Zuffa events? Because if IBF are putting their belt up for this one, then we have to seriously ask why Jai Patai hasn't been reinstated or given an opportunity to fight for that belt again. It's a fucking mess, right? And I said it when IBF first made the decision to strip Jai. I said it's the wrong decision. And, you know, they've just now seen, like, the IBF's two highest ranked contenders, they're mandatory to fight for the vacant belt, was Aaron McKenna and Etanos Olaha. They were the top two guys, and Zuffa's taken them both. So IBF are now standing around with their dick in their hand saying, what the fuck do we do? Our best two middleweights have just gone to Zuffa. We either go and give the belt to our third, fourth, fifth contender, or we're going to have to just swallow our pride and say, Zuffa, okay, we'll let you use our fighters. I think that's a mad thing from IBF, and it was a stupid decision to strip Jai in the first place. I don't know why they would. Why? Nobody's even holding that IBF cruiserweight belt now. Nobody knows who's going to get it, who's going to fight for it, where it should end up. Because guess what? The cruiserweight division, the two best IBF fighters, Chris Smith and Jai Patai, are with Zuffa. So, yeah, I think IBF have really shot themselves in the foot, and they're going to have to rescind some, prior decisions and look like dickheads. Gary Antoine Russell and Isaac Pitbull Cruz are a rumored bout for later this year. Yeah, Isaac Pitbull Cruz, he deserves a big fight like that, doesn't he? I get behind Isaac Pitbull Cruz because whether he wins or loses, you know what you're going to get. He's a high entertainment fighter. And he's very, very good as well. He had a very, very close decision with Tank Davis. I think people forget about how competitive was in that fight. He just had a very competitive fight with Lamont Roach that he arguably won or lost, whichever way you sit. So him versus Gary Antoine Russell, I think is a very good fight. Smith versus Buatsi 2, as well as Nick Ball and MJ Akhmakdaliev are two of the rumored fights to be part of the second 5v5/7v7, whatever they're going to call this one. Yeah, Smith versus Buatsi 2, we all want to see that. The first fight was fight of the year. I mean, it was unbelievable action. Nick Ball versus MJ Akhmakdaliev. Yeah, Nick Ball needs to rebuild from that fight against Brandon Figueroa. MJ Akhmakdaliev, he's already started his rebuild after losing to Inoue. Two different fashions. MJ was clearly outclassed and outboxed by Inoue by a complete mile, but doesn't get knocked out. Nick Ball had a very competitive fight against Brandon Figueroa, one that was, tiltering on a draw and then gets knocked out. So, yeah, two guys in sort of similar positions, a little bit different, but I still think it's a very, very good fight, and it'll be interesting to see how Nick Ball rebounds. And the other thing is, MJ Akhmakdaliev struggled against Inoue because Inoue was such a good mover. Nick Ball's going to be right in front of him, and we know how hard MJ hits. So I think it'll be a good fight, and I don't think it's an easy one to call. Raymond Muratella versus Robson Conceição is set to happen as well. Raymond Muratella is somebody that I would really like to see take on Shakur Stevenson. I was pleasantly surprised that he beat Andy Cruz. I tipped Andy Cruz. I said I think he'll win just. I think he'll outbox Raymond Muratella. But Raymond Muratella, he's the real fucking deal, man. He hits with so much power and he's so skillful. I can't wait to see him in the ring again. And Robson Conceição, he'll bring the action. So it'll be a competitive fight. Raymond Cardenas versus Sam Goodman set for an interim WBC championship. No date or occasion or time. I don't know where this fight will fall. We could even see this on the Errol Spence versus Tim Zucard. It wouldn't surprise me at all. Raymond Cardenas, We all saw that fight against Naoya Inoue. Sam Goodman, he's on a good run now considering the loss to Nick Ball last year. He beat Tyler Blizzard and he beat, I can't even remember the other guy he beat, but he beat somebody earlier this year. I would tip Sam Goodman to beat Raymond Cardenas. I think Sam Goodman is technically better than Raymond Cardenas, but you have to be quite a good fighter to be able to drop Inoue. So I think it'll be a competitive fight. And like I said, I wouldn't be surprised if it does end up on that Errol Spence versus Tim Tszyu card later this year. All right, moments of the week. What has caught my eye in the world of combat sports this week? Sean Strickland has been banned from the UFC White House event for his comments about Donald Trump. UFC Freedom 250. I mean, we're talking about an event to celebrate the birthday of America. Sean Strickland, on the whole UFC roster, is probably the most American guy on there, and he's been banned from the event. So I do feel bad for Sean Strickland, but we know how prestigious and high sort of class this event is. UFC Freedom, limited tickets, VIPs basically only. Sean Strickland is a bit of a loose cannon to be letting in there. All right, he is the most American UFC fighter, but you know what? For me, he probably should have been on the card. I would have liked to have seen Sean Strickland because, like I said, he's possibly the most American guy out there. Yeah, so a bit of a shame for Sean Strickland, but once again, with some of the comments, it's just, it's outrageous. Last week, the 3rd of June, we remember, honor, and commemorate Muhammad Ali, marking 10 years since his passing. An Olympic gold medalist, a 3-time heavyweight champion, 6-time Fighter of the Year winner, 6-time Fighter of the Year winner, 1970s Fighter of the Decade, philanthropist, and humanitarian. Just an unbelievable fighter, man. The fact that, you know, this guy fought 60 odd years ago and we still talk about him as the greatest, it shows you how good Muhammad Ali was. And I think his impact spurs more than just boxing. I mean, the humanitarian, the philanthropist stuff, all the stuff that he did outside the ring and inside the ring, he is one of the greats. Cassius Clay, Muhammad Ali. Beterbiev calls David Benavidez out for ducking his fights. Now, this is the quote from Beterbiev. It'll be up on your screen. Beterbiev calling out David Benavidez for ducking him. I'm at a very strange point in David Benavidez. I think we've given him so much sort of leniency in his career because the storyline's always been David Benavidez is only fighting sort of bums or lesser fighters because he couldn't have got the fight with Canelo Alvarez, which is a fair argument, but it doesn't also discount the fact that people that David Benavidez has fought and has beaten. I don't want to discredit his wins too much. I think Caleb Plant, you know, that was a tough fight. Demetrius Andrade, sort of back end of his career. David Morrell, we've seen what David Morrell's been throwing up lately, so maybe we overstated that win. Zurdo Ramirez, a champion at super middle, a champion at cruiserweight, but no real big names on the fact sheet, and a stylistic nightmare. Zurdo Ramirez also at the back end of his career, no footwork. It worked for David Benavidez. I don't want to discount his wins too much, but I think there is a point in his career where David Benavidez needs to stop blaming Canelo Alvarez for the fights that he's having. And what I mean by that is there is plenty of people in and around that David Benavidez can go and fight. If you really want to make a statement, if you really want to be the best, go and fight Jai Opetaia. Go and fight Dmitry Bivol. Go fight Artur Beterbiev. Go fight one of these big guys. It's not as though Jai Opetaia has a fight lined up. It's not as though Dmitry Bivol, we know if he's taken on Beterbiev or Callum Smith. If he's going to be taking on Callum Smith, then why is Beterbiev not going to be facing David Benavidez? Saying that David Benavidez, you know, if he ducked Beterbiev a few years ago, he might come around to taking on Artur Beterbiev now because Artur Beterbiev is not the fighter he might have been 4 years ago. Artur Beterbiev is now at a point of his career where we haven't seen him for 15 plus months, slowing down, 40-something years of age. So it probably works in favor of David Benavidez. But I want to see David Benavidez against Jai, either the top cruiserweight or against Dmitry Bivol, the top light heavy. Either one of those. All right? I even hear talks about him taking on Alexander Usyk. I like how the chats are starting now when Alexander Usyk just had his worst performance. And like I said, I don't want to rip into David Benavidez too much. I do think he's an exceptional fighter. I do think he has a lot to offer. But I do think it's a point where we have to stop blaming Canelo Alvarez for David Benavidez and say, David Benavidez, what are you doing? What are you doing to make these big fights? You didn't get Canelo Alvarez, but he's not the only name in and around those divisions. Let's see you have a big fight. Let's see you compromise something. And I think a lot of it does reflect on his promoter, Samson Lukowicz. I'm not a fan of Samson Lukowicz. I think he's one of those guys. You know, in Rocky 3, when Rocky finds out that he's just sort of been, you know, given easy fights in every single title defense. You know, he's been catered to. He's been hand-picked fights that he can win. and then he wants to take on Clubber Lang. I feel like that's what Samson Lukowicz does, right? He gives you hand-picked easy fights. Like you look at what Gabriela Fandora, undisputed champion, the people that she fights. You look at Sebastian Fandora, the fact that he ducked a fight with Xander Zayas, which was the fight to make to take on Tim Tszyu, that was still recovering from being blasted away from Bakram Murtazaliev. And then we saw him say, all right, I want the top dogs in the division, and then takes on Keith Thurman. We knew Keith Thurman wasn't going to win that fight. So I do think that's a reflection. David Benavidez, I believe, only has one fight left with Samson Lukowicz. And I think the best bet for Benavidez is you have that last fight and then you go and find a better promoter. Because, like I said, I don't really have much respect or care for Samson Lukowicz, the way he protects his fighters, the fights he gives them. I'm not a fan. I'm a fan of fighters fighting the best. If you're going to call out the best, you go and face the best. If Sebastian Fandora wants to call out Virgil Ortiz, John Boots, Xander Zayas, all these people, then you go and face them. You don't call them out and then go face Keith Thurman or vacate belts, which I think is something that we overlook. Michael Bisping and Tom Aspinall. This was a relationship that's come out sort of the past week. Michael Bisping saying he's not really that close with Tom Aspinall. He doesn't talk to him anymore.
I got to choose my words carefully here, but he just said he's still not clear to fight. But he's been very vague with the details.
Yeah.
Because he's got a YouTube channel. He posts content all the time. You talk about it.
Yeah.
You know, the procedures that he had, the operations, whatever they were. I had a surgery. It was a very, very serious surgery. It's called sclerobuccal. Look it up online. It's gross what they do to the eyeball. I don't know what he had, but he hasn't talked about that. I had that surgery, recovered, came back, and had a fight in a shorter amount of time than what it's taken this whole eye poke saga. You know,
it stinks, Michael. It stinks.
I don't say it stinks. I mean, it's as a guy, I know Tom. We used to have a close relationship. We don't talk these days. He was a great guy. Maybe, I don't know, you look between the lines. There's something fucking weird going on.
Which I think is a massive shame, because in the come up of Tom Aspinall, I think there was a bigger figure calling for how good Tom Aspinall was. Every time you heard Tom Aspinall being talked about, Michael Bisping would big this guy up every single fucking time. And Michael Bisping, I think all he did was simply question, why haven't we heard any reports from Tom Aspinall? Why are we not seeing any doctor's notes? Why aren't we seeing anything really from Tom Aspinall talking about his eye? And stuff from that has sort of spurred out into personal life and almost divided the two guys. But I think Michael Bisping questioning where Tom Aspinall is fair. You get away with it. You did get poked in the eye. It was a foul. But it's a point where you got to start saying, well, where are you, mate? What the fuck? We see this noise between Tom Aspinall and Eddie Hearn. Tom Aspinall not fighting. It is a mess. Tom Aspinall, he was shafted by the UFC in the first place, not getting the John Jones fight. And then the fact that he fights Cyril Gahn after like 20 months odd layoff, and he just gets poked in the eyes for the first few rounds. In Cyril Gahn's defense, I think Cyril Gahn was winning that fight at that point, but you can't eye poke people. And that's another thing that UFC needs to think about. I don't know why that they aren't just using these gloves that I've seen going around that hide the fingers, like almost like a mitt. I don't know. Put them in oven mitts, because there's no reason that the fingers need to be out. The Zuffa shirts, I see this. This is like a bit of a moment of the week, because I think it's so funny. I see all over Zuffa and UFC and stuff, these shirts that they sell. All right. And I don't want to disrespect any fighter. All right. But we're going to use Ryan Rozicki as an example. All right. But no disrespect to Ryan Rozicki. No disrespect to Chris Boom Smith. All right. I have much respect, especially seeing those two animals and warriors go to war. But Zuffa are bringing out these shirts, right? From all the fighters. Every single fighter basically on the roster gets a shirt. And they're selling it on their website. If you're not a friend or, you know, a family member, who's actually buying these shirts? That's my biggest question. Who's going out here and spending that amount of money to buy one of these shirts? It's something that the UFC always do, and I've never personally gone out and seen anybody wear these shirts, whether they're UFC ones or whether they're Zuffa ones. I never see people wearing these shirts. I always see sort of other brands of these shirts. So I know Zuffa does have these partnerships with their fighters that they're going to, you know, sell them in different ways. It's more than just the fights. It's all the promotional corporate stuff as well. But if anybody's bought one of these shirts, please do let me know in the comments, because I'd love to know, are people buying these shirts or not? Shakur Stevenson still rooting for Josh Padley after their fight. I love when enemies or foes become friends and they root for each other. Like Shakur Stevenson. Shakur's fight was saved on that card. Let's not forget, Shakur was going to not fight on that card. Floyd Schofield pulls out. Josh Padley, on a few days' notice, steps up to fight Shakur Stevenson. That takes a lot of guts. And I like that Shakur Stevenson is still now rooting for Josh Padley. I'd love to see these two guys in the gym together working, because I love when their enemies, former foes, become friends, work together. And like I said, Josh Padley needs credit because he did save that event for Shakur Stevenson. Ahead of UFC Freedom 250, Cyril Gane has pulled in a former opponent of Alex Pereira's, Vargas, to train with him, go through some film study. Vargas was, I believe, the last person to beat Alex Pereira at kickboxing. So, Gane getting some inside knowledge there from Vargas. I think the fight this weekend, Cyril Gane versus Alex Pereira, looks unbelievable as a heavyweight. I mean, the guy's fucking huge. I've met him once, right? And he was a fucking giant, and that was when he was still fighting light heavy. Like, he is so fucking big, right? I'm about 5'11", right? And I stood next to him. I was like, nah, this guy, how was this guy a light heavyweight? How the hell was this guy a middleweighter? The guy is a giant, and this fight is going to be very interesting because I think Gane as a kickboxer is very, very good. So bringing in Vargas, trying to fight Alex Pereira as a kickboxer, all the stand-up, I think it's going to be a very interesting fight, providing Gane doesn't take down Alex Pereira. That'll be a very different fight, but I hope they do a stand-up, almost a kickboxing match. I think it'll be very entertaining. The UFC have released what the White House ring girls are going to look like, some very cool costumes. I like when they do this. I like when they get the ring girls to dress up for the occasion. They did it for the Sphere event when they had them all in Mexican wear. I think it's great. I think they should do it in more events. I think they should do it in boxing. Like when we had the Night of the Samurai, the Japanese stuff. I always think it brings a new element to the fight, brings some culture, and it respects the fighters, depending on what it is, depending on what their aim is, like the Spanish one, showing off the Mexican fighters, like this one, showing off the American fighters. I think it's a great look. All right, next weekend, we're going to talk about some of these fights. Let's start with UFC 250. I do want to talk about some of the fights, and then we're going to end with the boxing stuff. Primarily Antonio Vargas versus Jesse Bam Rodriguez. But the UFC Freedom 250 card, if we start at the bottom, Diego Lopez versus Steve Garcia, Bo Nickel versus Kyle Dukas, Mauricio Ruffi versus Michael Chandler, Josh Hockett versus Derek Lewis, which I think will be such a funny fight, eh? Josh Hockett is a fucking maniac. Him in that press conference calling out Pereira and Ilia Topuria, I thought it was so funny, man. The way Ilia Topuria and Alex Pereira were like, you want to pick a fight with two harder guys? Like he picked out the two best fighters in the room and started calling them out, which is stupid. But if you want to make a fight, if you want to fight someone like Alex Pereira, they're the statements you got to make. And if he beats Derek Lewis, I think he's very much in that conversation to be fighting Alex Pereira for an interim belt. I don't think he'll win, but I also think the heavyweight division in the UFC is trash. The fact that Cyril Gane is getting another title shot, another shot at a belt, shows you that it's not really the best division, is it? Sean O'Malley versus Alaman Zahabi. Alaman Zahabi is, he's been around for a few years now, and I think he's very, very good. And Sean O'Malley, I love Sean O'Malley, man. I think Sean O'Malley brings something. Sean O'Malley is something that we don't really have in boxing, is it? Like, we don't have characters in boxing. For whatever reason, we don't have guys in boxing that are like a Sean O'Malley, which is a shame because I do think it brings a lot of eyes. People get around Sugar Sean to watch him. And I do think he'll beat Zahabi. Alex Pereira versus Cyril Gane. I think Alex Pereira will win. What he did in his last fight was just criminal. Considering Alex Pereira loses to him in the first one, comes into the rematch and blasts him away in the very first round. Cyril Gane is very, very good, though. I do think it'll be a tough fight. I think people overlooked Cyril Gane against Tom Aspinall, and we only saw one round of action, but Cyril Gane definitely had a competitive sort of edge in that fight. And many people would have given Cyril Gane sort of the opening round against Tom Aspinall. Ilia Topuria versus Justin Gaethje. This is one that is a great main event. I originally thought Justin Gaethje was going to lose to Paddy Pimblett, and we were going to see Ilia Topuria versus Paddy, which would have been an outrageous fight because those two guys were at war and at odds consistently over the past few years. And I think there would have been a lot of emotion in that fight. But the way Josh Padley was handled by Justin Gaethje, if Padley was in there with Ilia Topuria, it would have been easy work. Ilia Topuria versus Justin Gaethje, I think for everybody knowing how good Ilia Topuria is at boxing and wrestling and just the whole sport, he's just incredible. Justin Gaethje always brings that element of what the fuck is he going to do? Like, the unorthodox nature of Justin Gaethje always makes it an exciting watch, and he's durable. We saw that against Paddy Pimblett. He's so durable. So Ilia Topuria, I was surprised how easy he knocked out Charles Oliveira. And I think Ilia Topuria, he's just on a mean streak. What he did to Max Holloway, what he did to Volk, what he did to Charles Oliveira, the guy's incredible. And as durable and as unorthodox as Justin Gaethje is, I think he gets fed. Eddie Hall's taking on Tommy Fury. We're not really going to talk about it, but it is on this weekend. I find some of those fights funny, man. It's just like Eddie Hall versus Tommy Fury. Nobody in the boxing world wants to see that, but we're going to see it. I'm going to sit down and watch it because I think it will be a bit of a laugh. Who wins it? I mean, your guess is as good as mine because it is farcical. It's not going to be a proper boxing match. Eddie Hall might land one big punch. Tommy Fury might just run around. We don't know. But yeah, I mean, if you're watching it, you know you're going to have a bit of a laugh because it is farcical, but it is funny because Eddie Hall, he's a fucking giant, man. He is giant. Tommy Fury, I think Tommy Fury is now reserved to be in this kind of guy. Let me go fight creators. Let me go fight people. We'll put on a bit of a spectacle. We'll have a bit of fun. I will be intrigued to see how seriously they take it. Because sometimes I don't take it overly seriously. I want these guys to go in there and have a proper fight. Alif Nuturan versus Gabriela Tellez. This is for an IBF lightweight title. Alif Nuturan got away with one last time out against Taylor Genson. And I think we can all agree. She looks so one-dimensional in that fight. She just charges forward, throws a big punch. If it doesn't land, all right, reload, let's do it again. Let's do it again. Let's do it. That's all she did that whole entire fight. She gets away with it. I do think she beat Taylor Genson just from the aggression, just the front foot action. But she gets away with one because she could have very easily lost that fight. Gabriela Tellez, a decent amateur. She's 19 years of age, 7 wins, 3 knockouts, 0 losses, but a big step up. She can win it. She can win it. If she boxes against Alif Nuturan and Nuturan doesn't learn from her fight against Taylor Genson and doesn't land a big punch, then Gabriela Tellez has more than a chance of winning this fight because you can't fight that one-dimensional. You can fight that one-dimensional if the punch lands. If it doesn't, you look a bit stupid, and she did look a little bit stupid against Taylor Genson. So I hope she works it out. I hope she fixes it, adds a little bit more boxing. You can still use that big power punch because it's a great weapon to have in women's boxing. So to have that power, to have that knockout ability in women's boxing, it's very, very useful. But you got to couple it up with something else. All right, the final fight of the weekend, Antonio Vargas versus Jesse Bam Rodriguez for that WBA bantamweight title. I think this fight here is being overlooked. I do. I might even make a separate video later in the week, but Antonio Vargas is a guy that is a champion in this division. He had a very, very good fight against Dago Higo. He had a fight of the year contender a few years ago where he got dropped and then he knocked out his opponent later in the fight. For Bam Rodriguez, he needs to not... Like, why I say this is a dangerous fight is I think we all know how good Bam Rodriguez is. And for me, there's no question I think he should beat Antonio Vargas. But we'd all probably have said the same thing about Junto Nakatani and Sebastian Hernandez. That fight wasn't the fight that we expected it to be. And there's an argument that Sebastian Hernandez deserved to get a win in that fight. So Jesse Bam Rodriguez, as much as we think he should win, as much as I believe he will win, you can't be looking at and thinking about Inoue when you step in the ring against Antonio Vargas. He's the guy that you have to be thinking about. He's the one that you have to beat because you get sidetracked. You start looking at about other people, you're on your way to a loss. All right. And Junto Nakatani, he didn't lose, but he got away with one. I know plenty of people that gave it to Sebastian Hernandez. And the last thing you want to do is leave it up to judges' decisions, especially what we've seen over the past 3 weeks, which is farcical. So Jesse Bam Rodriguez should be able to outbox Antonio Vargas. I think this is a pit stop. I think Bam Rodriguez wins this belt, beats Antonio Vargas, and then it's, all right, where's my boy Inoue? Where is he? When's this fight happening? And that's the fight we all want to see. But I like the fact that Bam's going to get accustomed to this division before stepping up. I think trying to jump 2 divisions to take on Inoue is a stupid move. I still think it could bite him in the ass not having a fight, in the division with Inoue. It's a questionable decision to not fight in Inoue's division before you face him. But Jesse Bam Rodriguez, there's not much size difference between the two guys. Junto Nakatani had a fight up in the division. It didn't really make much of a difference. Jesse Bam Rodriguez just needs to go in here and beat Antonio Vargas because you have a poor performance, you have a stale performance, then the pressure's on you. The headlines are very, very different coming into that fight. You go in there, you blast Antonio Vargas away, and all of a sudden, we're seeing serious talks about him versus Inoue. All right, guys, thank you all very much. This has been a very long podcast, longer than I normally do them, but I'm glad we got to talk some boxing for an hour or so. If you are new, please do like the video, subscribe. If you have made it this far, I do appreciate you watching. I do appreciate you being a part of the channel. And you know what? Jump in the comments. Let me know all your thoughts about today's episode. Let me know what you liked, what you didn't like. If there's anything you want me to add. Is it too long this much? I know the last few have been about that 35 to 40 minutes. This one's going to be longer. I'll chop it all up, and I don't know how long it'll be. Probably close to 50 minutes or more. Let me know which way you prefer it. I can cut it down. I can either make this the hour long and then during the week release some clips from it. So you just have to let me know what you guys think. We do need a name for the podcast, and we definitely need a name for my moments of the week. Let me know what you thought of me integrating some UFC stuff as well. We're developing this podcast every single week. So like, subscribe. Thank you all for watching. I'm out of here, guys. See ya.